Chapter 1. On our third wedding anniversary, Miranda kissed her assistant Philip in front of everyone at the company's annual meeting. The applause from the audience was thunderous, and the host joked that the marketing manager had found true love. I sat in the crowd, holding a champagne glass, smiling and clapping. When Miranda saw me, her face instantly turned pale, and she hurriedly pushed Philip away. If it were before, I would have rushed onto the stage to tear apart her facade. I would have let all of our colleagues witness her embarrassing moment. But this time, my heart was as calm as still water. After the meeting, Miranda chased me flusteredly to the parking lot to explain herself. "Henry, listen to me, I had too much to drink just now," she stammered. I started the car and told her flatly, "Get in, we'll talk at home." She froze for a moment and carefully sat in the passenger seat. We did not speak a single word during the entire drive back. At home, I went to the kitchen to warm up some milk. Miranda stood hesitantly at the kitchen door, seemingly at a loss for words. "Don't you want to ask me about it?" Her voice sounded tentative and uneasy. I calmly turned around and asked, "Ask about what?" "About what happened on stage." She murmured nervously. "Oh," I said flatly, "congratulations to both of you." Miranda's face changed colors repeatedly, and she finally bit her lip to speak. "Henry, I was just confused for a moment." "Philip, what happened to him?" I asked without any emotion. "He said he was going to quit, and I couldn't bear it." I put the cup down and turned to look straight at her. "So, you're trying to keep him by doing something irrational like this?" "No," she quickly denied in a panic. "We didn't have anything at all." I nodded slightly and said, "Good, nothing's going on, then." I then picked up the milk and walked straight to the study. Behind me, I heard Miranda's soft sobbing, but I chose to ignore it completely. In the past, I could never stand to see her shed a single tear. Every time her eyes turned red, my heart ached terribly, and I wanted to give her everything. But now, her tears were nothing more than a crocodile's fake performance to me. That night, Miranda tiptoed quietly into my study while I was working. "Honey, I was wrong. Please forgive me," she begged softly. She kneeled beside my chair, with steady tears streaming down her cheeks. This used to work perfectly on me. I would always soften up and hold her tightly. I would comfort her and tell her that everything was okay and forgiven. But this time, I just glanced at her briefly and continued with my paperwork. "Miranda, get up. The floor is cold." A glimmer of hope instantly flashed in her eyes. "Does that mean you forgive me?" "No," I said without looking up from my documents. "I'm just reminding you to take care of your health." She froze on the spot, remaining motionless for a long time. After signing the last contract, I stood up and walked toward the bedroom. As I passed by her frozen figure, I paused for a second. "By the way, starting tomorrow, you'll sleep in the guest room." "Why?" she asked in obvious panic. "I have a cleanliness obsession," I replied coldly. These words landed sharply on her face like a heavy slap. Miranda's face immediately turned bright red, but I had already entered the bedroom and shut the door. Through the closed door, I heard her crying louder and louder. In the past, I would have felt guilty and opened the door to comfort her. Now, her noisy crying only felt annoying to my ears. I put on my headphones and continued my unfinished work peacefully. Chapter 2. The next day, when I arrived at the company, Miranda was already waiting at my office door. She wore delicate makeup and the dress I had once complimented, holding breakfast in her hands. "Honey, I bought you milk and bread," she said gently. I took the breakfast, said a plain thank you, and threw it straight into the trash can. "Henry!" She couldn't help raising her voice in shock and grievance. I glanced at her indifferently and reminded her, "Mind the occasion, Manager Miranda." Her face alternated between pale and flushed with embarrassment. She eventually gritted her teeth and turned back to her office in frustration. During the morning meeting, I sat in the main seat of the conference room. Miranda and Philip sat side by side right across from me. Philip was wearing a brand new suit today with neatly styled hair. He looked young, handsome, and full of youthful vitality. From time to time, he stole cautious glances at Miranda. His eyes were filled with obvious admiration and fondness for her. Miranda, on the other hand, kept staring fixedly at me the whole time. She tried her best to find even a tiny sign of concern or anger on my face. Unfortunately, I remained completely expressionless throughout the entire meeting. Halfway through the meeting, Philip's phone suddenly rang. It was a childish Pikachu ringtone that echoed in the quiet room. He blushed in embarrassment, hung up quickly, and muttered a hurried apology. I spoke in a calm and official tone. Assistant Philip, please keep your phone on silent during the meeting. Yes, President Koo, he replied respectfully with his head lowered. Miranda immediately chimed in to defend him. He's only been with us for a short time and doesn't fully understand the company rules. I shifted my gaze to her unhurriedly. Manager Miranda, as his direct supervisor, you should train him better in professional etiquette. Yes, I will, she replied obediently. After the meeting ended, I kept Miranda behind in the conference room alone. I don't want to hear any rumors about you and Philip spreading in the company again. A trace of obvious panic flashed quickly in her eyes. Henry, I really didn't. She tried to explain anxiously. I interrupted her directly. Whether you did or not is not important. What matters is that your personal behavior does not affect the company's reputation. Do you still care about me? She asked tentatively, staring at me eagerly. I stayed silent for a few seconds before giving a calm reply. Miranda, we are both a married couple and colleagues. Please know your place. With that sentence, I turned and left the conference room directly. In the afternoon, my best friend Mason came to find me at the company. What's wrong? You look so upset, he asked with sincere concern. I briefly told him everything that had happened between Miranda and me the previous night. After listening to my story, Mason slammed his hand heavily on the table in anger. Damn that bitch Miranda. She's crossing every line. Calm down, I poured him a cup of tea soothingly. It's already over. Over? And you're just letting her get away with it like that? He asked in disbelief. What else can I do? I countered calmly. Mason stared at me quietly and remained silent for a long time. Henry, you've changed a lot, he said finally. Yeah, I've changed, I admitted frankly without hesitation. The old you would have given up everything for Miranda without a second thought. Now I'm more rational and clear-headed, I replied simply. Mason sighed deeply. That's good. That woman isn't worth your devotion. Just then, the secretary knocked on the door and walked into my office. President Koo, Manager Miranda would like to see you. Let her in, I said indifferently. When Miranda entered and saw Mason was present, her face turned awkward at once. Mason is here too, she greeted stiffly. Mason wore a cold expression and did not respond to her greeting at all. Henry, I have some work to report to you. Miranda adjusted her mood and spoke formally. Go ahead, I nodded slightly. Could Mason leave for a moment? She asked cautiously. I glanced at Mason, who stood up thoughtfully to avoid awkwardness. I'll leave now, you two can talk another time. As soon as Mason left, Miranda completely dropped her formal work demeanor. She rushed quickly towards me with anxiety written all over her face. Honey, do you still love me? She asked eagerly. I reached out and pushed her away gently but firmly. Manager Miranda, please mind your proper behavior in the company. Henry. She panicked instantly. We can talk freely at home, but you can't treat me like this at work. Why not? I asked coldly. Because I'm your wife. She retorted anxiously. I nodded slowly, my tone icy and unyielding. Yes, you are my wife. So when you kissed another man in front of the whole company last night, did you ever consider how I would feel? She was instantly left speechless, with no words to refute me. Miranda, I stood up straight and looked down at her. Since you've chosen to have an ambiguous affair at the company, you must bear all the corresponding consequences. What consequences? She asked nervously. Starting tomorrow, Philip will be transferred to another department. No. She hurriedly stopped me in panic. He's my assistant, and he's very capable at work. That's even better. A capable employee deserves a better development platform. Miranda's face turned completely pale in an instant. Henry, you can't do this to me. I'm the vice president of the company. This is my final decision, I stated firmly. With that, I grabbed my coat and prepared to leave the office. Where are you going? She asked hurriedly. I'm going on a business trip for a week, I replied casually. In reality, I had no business trip plans at all. I just simply didn't want to see her face anymore. Chapter 3. I stayed in a hotel for 3 whole days to avoid her. Miranda sent me countless messages and made endless calls every single day. Her words shifted from sincere apologies at the beginning to threatening complaints later. In the end, she completely lowered her stance and begged for my forgiveness humbly. I did not respond to any of her messages or answer any of her calls. On the 4th day, Mason took the initiative to come to the hotel to find me. Hiding away like this isn't a fundamental solution, he persuaded me. I'm not hiding from anyone, I replied calmly. Then go home, he insisted. I shook my head firmly. I don't want to go back to that house. Why? He asked in confusion. Just the sight of her makes me feel disgusted, I said truthfully. Mason paused for a moment and put forward a straightforward suggestion. Henry, why don't you just get a divorce and end this suffering? Divorce? I stared at this word and thought about it seriously for the first time. Yes, this kind of woman is not worth you wasting your precious time on her. I fell into deep and long thought. The idea of divorce had actually taken root in my heart a long time ago. From the moment I first discovered the flirtatious chat messages between Miranda and Philip, I knew our marriage was finished. There was no longer any love or trust left between us. I'll think about it carefully, I finally said. That evening, Miranda sent me an extremely long text message. Honey, I know I was wrong, I really know I was wrong. Philip has already been transferred, and I will never see him again. Will you come back home? I'm so scared and lonely without you here. I read the entire message calmly, then deleted it without hesitation. I finished by directly blocking all her contact methods completely. On the fifth day, the company secretary called me urgently. President Koo, Manager Miranda has been crying in your office all day, and she has suddenly fainted now. Should we send her to the hospital? The secretary asked for instructions. Send her, I replied in an extremely calm tone. Do you want to come back to the company to check on her? No, I'm still out of town on business, I lied flatly. After hanging up the call, I continued reading the financial report in my hand. Miranda's life or death had absolutely nothing to do with me anymore. On the sixth day, I returned to the company as usual. The secretary immediately reported the latest situation to me. President Koo, Manager Miranda asked for sick leave today and did not come to work. Got it, I replied indifferently and continued my daily work. I handled all my official business methodically, as if nothing had happened at all. In the afternoon, the HR manager came to my office to report an important matter. President Koo, I have something important to report to you. Go ahead, I looked up from my documents. Philip has formally submitted his resignation letter to the HR department. I picked up the resignation letter and glanced at the simple content on the paper. It only read, personal reasons, unable to continue working at the company. Approve his resignation application directly, I ordered without thinking. What about the replacement for his position? The HR manager asked. Arrange public recruitment for a new assistant, I replied casually. After the HR manager left, I received a call from an unknown number. Is this President Koo? This is Philip speaking. The voice on the other end was clear and nervous. What's the matter? I asked plainly. I want to talk to you about Miranda. I almost let out a low laugh at his words. What's there left for us to talk about? President Koo, Miranda really loves you deeply. She almost lost her life because of you yesterday. Oh, I responded without any fluctuation in my mood. So what? Don't you care about her at all? He asked in disbelief. Why should I care? I retorted coldly. Philip was instantly at a loss for words and fell into a long silence. Mr. Philip, I took the initiative to break the awkward silence. You are no longer an employee of our company, so please stop involving yourself in our marital affairs. But he tried to argue. I directly hung up the phone without giving him a chance to finish. Young people were always so naive, thinking they were the passionate male leads in romantic dramas. That evening, I went back to our villa home. Miranda was busy working in the kitchen, preparing dinner carefully. The moment she saw me walk in, she ran over in great surprise. Honey, you're back. I changed my shoes slowly and asked casually, what are you cooking? Sweet and sour ribs and tomato egg drop soup, all your favorite dishes, she replied eagerly. I responded with a single indifferent sound. She carefully observed my facial expression nervously. You're not angry anymore, right? Not angry, I said calmly. Really? A glimmer of bright hope flashed in her eyes immediately. Really, I nodded faintly. Miranda, let's have a serious talk. She instantly turned off the stove and sat nervously across from me. Henry, what do you want to say to me? I took a document out of my briefcase and placed it firmly in front of her. It was a formal, complete divorce agreement. Chapter 4. Miranda stared blankly at the divorce agreement on the table, her face turning deathly pale. Henry, you're joking with me, right? Her voice trembled violently. "I'm not joking at all," I said in a steady and calm tone. "I've thought this through completely." "Why?" She could barely hold back her tears. "Is it just because of that incident at the annual meeting?" "I told you I was drunk and not in my right mind." She tried to defend herself. "It's not just that single incident," I denied her excuse directly. I took out my phone and opened a carefully sorted file folder. "Here are all the chat records between you and Philip starting from 6 months ago." Her face completely drained of all color in an instant. You snooped through my private phone messages?" "I didn't snoop on you," I corrected her. "You simply forgot to log out of your cloud sync account." Miranda trembled uncontrollably and reached out to grab my phone in a panic, but I easily dodged her hand. "These chat records are more than enough to prove your inappropriate relationship with him," I continued coldly. "There are late-night chats, private photo exchanges, and all kinds of cheesy intimate nicknames." "Henry, let me explain everything to you," she begged anxiously. "No need to explain anything," I interrupted her firmly. "I don't care when this wrong relationship started. I only want this marriage to end completely." Suddenly, Miranda knelt heavily on the floor right in front of me. "Honey, I was wrong. I really was wrong. Please forgive me," she cried bitterly. "Get up," I said coldly without any sympathy. "I won't get up." She clung tightly to my leg and refused to let go. "Henry, I can't live without you. I'll die without you." I looked down at her humble and crying figure, but my heart did not stir at all. In the past, I could never bear to see her lower herself like this. As long as she showed even the slightest weakness, I would be overwhelmed with sympathy and softness. But now, all her humble gestures felt completely fake and performative to me. "Miranda, you won't die without me," I said truthfully. "You still have Philip by your side." "I have nothing at all with Philip." She quickly and anxiously denied it. "We're just ordinary colleagues." I opened my phone and showed her a clear photo. It was a picture of the two of them hugging tightly outside a hotel, dated 1 month prior. "Is this also just a normal colleague relationship?" I asked coldly. When Miranda saw the photo, she was completely overwhelmed by despair. "Henry!" She loosened her grip on my leg and collapsed powerlessly onto the floor. "When did you start doubting me?" she asked hoarsely. "The first time I saw you send him the message 'I miss you' in the middle of the night," I replied. "Then why didn't you question me back then?" she asked in confusion. "Would it have made any difference?" I retorted. "Would you have honestly admitted to your mistake?" She fell into total silence, with no way to refute my words. "Miranda, I'll give you 3 days to think about this carefully. After 3 days, whether you sign it or not, I will formally file for divorce." With that, I picked up my coat and prepared to leave. "Where are you going?" She hurriedly struggled to stand up and stop me. "I'm staying at a hotel tonight," I replied flatly. "Henry Koo!" She tried to chase after me but collapsed again due to weak legs. "You can't treat me like this," she cried helplessly. "Why can't I?" I turned back to look at her. "Because I love you," she shouted with all her strength. I stopped in my tracks and stared at her quietly. "You love me?" "Yes, I truly love you." She nodded repeatedly with tears streaming down her face. "Then why did you cheat on me and betray our marriage?" I asked coldly. I was just confused for a moment and made a mistake," she stammered. I shook my head in disappointment. "Miranda, if you truly loved someone, you would never betray them. You only kept me as your reliable backup and never truly cherished me." "No!" she cried out heartbreakingly. "Henry, I really love you." "If you really loved me," I said in a frigid tone, "then sign the divorce papers and stop wasting each other's time." With that, I turned and left without looking back once. I could hear her desperate cries behind me, but I paid them no mind. That night at the hotel, I slept extremely soundly and peacefully. A house without Miranda's noise and deception was quiet and comfortable like heaven. Chapter 5. Early the next morning, I received a call from Mason. "Henry, Miranda came to my company and made a huge scene." "What kind of scene did she make?" I asked calmly. "She kept saying you want a divorce and begged me to persuade you to change your mind." I gently rubbed my temples helplessly. "What did you say to her?" "I told her I fully support your decision." Then she started cursing at me unreasonably. "She accused me of trying to drive a wedge between your marriage," Mason said. "Sorry for causing you unnecessary trouble," I apologized briefly. "It's fine," Mason replied casually. But Henry, have you really thought this all the way through? I've thought it through very clearly, I answered firmly. Then stick to your decision and don't soften your heart, he advised. I simply responded. After hanging up the call, I finished getting ready to go to the company. As soon as I stepped out of the hotel gate, I saw Miranda sitting alone in the lobby. She clearly hadn't slept all night. Her eyes were red and swollen, and her hair was messy. The moment she caught sight of me, she immediately stood up in a hurry. "Henry!" she called out eagerly. I pretended not to see her and walked straight past her out of the hotel. She chased after me quickly, shouting my name nonstop. "Henry, wait for me." I got into my car and closed the door, ignoring her completely. She started banging on the car window frantically. "Henry, open the door." I started the car slowly and drove away from the hotel entrance. Through the rearview mirror, I saw her stumble a few steps and finally stop chasing me. She squatted on the side of the road and cried uncontrollably in despair. When I arrived at the company, the secretary reported to me immediately. "President Koo, Manager Miranda has asked for sick leave today." "Got it," I replied indifferently and started my work. During the morning meeting, the marketing department head gave a report in Miranda's place. Halfway through the meeting, Miranda suddenly burst directly into the conference room. She was still wearing yesterday's clothes, with disheveled hair and a deathly pale face. "President Koo," she walked straight up to my seat. "I have important work to report." The entire conference room fell dead silent, and all colleagues watched the embarrassing scene. "Manager Miranda, you are on sick leave today." "You shouldn't be here," I said calmly. "I'm not sick at all." She suddenly raised her voice. "I want to work normally." "Manager Miranda, please calm down," I reminded her. "I am calm." Before anyone could react, she suddenly dropped to her knees in front of everyone. "President Koo, please don't abandon me." Gasps of shock filled the entire conference room instantly. I stared at her without any expression. "Manager Miranda, this is a formal company workplace. Please mind the occasion." "I don't care about the occasion at all," she cried loudly. "Henry, I can't live without you." I pressed the intercom button on the table. "Security, please come upstairs to the conference room immediately." "Henry!" She panicked thoroughly. "You can't do this to me." The security team arrived quickly, and I gestured at them faintly. "Please escort Manager Miranda out of the conference room." "Yes, President Koo," the security guards responded respectfully. They tried to help Miranda stand up, but she struggled desperately to resist. "Don't touch me. Henry Koo, you can't treat me like this." In the end, she was forcibly escorted out of the conference room by security. I continued hosting the company meeting as if nothing had happened. I could clearly feel all my colleagues secretly watching and discussing me. After the meeting ended, the vice president approached me privately. "Henry, this chaotic situation can't continue like this." "I know," I nodded. "The company's public image is extremely important," he reminded me seriously. "I will handle this matter properly," I assured him. In the afternoon, the HR department came to report the latest result to me. "President Koo, Manager Miranda has been suspended from work by the board of directors." "What's the reason for the suspension?" I asked. "Her recent inappropriate behavior has seriously affected the company's public image." I nodded slightly and did not say anything else. This outcome was completely expected and reasonable. Miranda's extreme behavior today had seriously violated official company policies. That evening, I was handling official documents in my hotel room when the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Philip was standing outside. "President Koo, may I come in and talk to you for a while?" I stepped aside politely. "Please come in." He sat down and got straight to the point without any idle talk. "President Koo, I want to talk to you about Miranda's current situation. You're still coming to me for her sake?" I asked faintly. "Yes," he nodded seriously. "Miranda tried to commit suicide by cutting her wrist today." The pen in my hand paused for a split second. "What?" Luckily, her neighbors found her in time and sent her to the hospital. "She is now in the emergency ward receiving treatment," he explained. I stayed silent for a few seconds before asking calmly, "Why are you taking the initiative to tell me this?" "Because she kept calling your name repeatedly while she was unconscious," he replied. "Oh," I responded without any emotional fluctuation. Philip was obviously stunned by my extreme indifference. "President Koo, aren't you the least bit worried about her?" "Why should I be worried?" I asked coldly. She's still your legal wife, he said anxiously. Not for much longer, I replied firmly. Philip angrily stood up from his seat. President Koo, how can you be so cold-hearted and ruthless? I looked up at him calmly. Mr. Philip, you should understand better than anyone why she ended up attempting suicide. What do you mean? He looked confused. If she hadn't betrayed our marriage and had an affair with you, we wouldn't have ended up like this, I stated plainly. Philip was instantly speechless and had no way to refute me. Furthermore, I continued unhurriedly. The reason she tried to kill herself is that she lost me as her safe backup, not because she lost true love. You're too heartless. He accused me angrily. Heartless? I let out a low laugh. Mr. Philip, when she was dating you secretly behind my back, did she ever consider my feelings? Philip lowered his head in shame, not daring to meet my eyes. Now that she's fallen into despair, you come to accuse me of being ruthless. How laughable, I said coldly. Philip stood up angrily and prepared to leave. President Koo, you will definitely regret this decision. I won't, I answered without the slightest hesitation. He slammed the door heavily on his way out in anger. I continued to handle my official documents peacefully, with my mood completely unchanged. Miranda's life or death truly had nothing to do with me anymore. All her joys and sorrows could no longer affect my heart. Chapter 6. The next day, I went to work at the company as usual. As soon as I arrived at my office, the secretary informed me of the latest news. President Koo, the hospital just called. Manager Miranda hopes you can go see her. Tell them I'm extremely busy and have no time, I replied directly. But President Koo. The secretary tried to persuade me. No buts, I interrupted her firmly. At noon, Mason came to have lunch with me. I heard Miranda tried to commit suicide yesterday, he said. Yes, I nodded casually. Aren't you going to the hospital to see her? He asked in surprise. No, I replied simply. Mason stared at me for a long time and let out a deep sigh. Henry, you've really changed completely. For the better or the worse? I asked jokingly. You've become more rational and decisive, he replied sincerely. While we were eating, my mobile phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar phone number. Is this President Koo? This is Miranda's mother speaking, the elderly voice came through the line. I paused briefly. Hello, Auntie. Henry, Miranda is lying in the hospital seriously injured. Could you come see her? Sorry, I'm busy with work right now, I refused politely but firmly. Is work more important than your wife's life? Her tone was full of reproach. Auntie, Miranda is not my daughter, I corrected her. She is my wife, or rather, my soon-to-be ex-wife. Ex-wife? You two haven't completed the divorce procedures yet, she argued. We will finish the divorce formalities very soon, I replied calmly. Henry. She raised her voice angrily. Miranda almost died for you, and you don't feel a single bit of guilt? I don't feel guilty at all, I answered frankly and directly. Miranda's mother was stunned into total silence by my straightforward indifference. Auntie, I took the initiative to speak. If you truly care about your daughter, you should persuade her to sign the divorce agreement. We can all move on with our lives after this ends, I said. Henry, how can you say such cruel words? She asked in disbelief. What cruel words? I asked coldly. Miranda loves you so deeply. Loves me? I interrupted her sharply. Auntie, do you know that your daughter had an affair and betrayed our marriage? Miranda's mother instantly fell silent, unable to reply. It seems you have known the truth all along, I continued. Since you know everything, don't try to use her so-called love to morally blackmail me. But she still wanted to argue. Auntie, there are no more excuses. Your daughter made the mistake, and she has to bear the consequences. With that, I directly hung up the phone. Mason looked at me with a shocked expression. Henry, you didn't even give your mother-in-law any face at all. Why should I give her face? I asked indifferently. She's still your legal mother-in-law for now, he reminded me. Not for long, I replied casually. Mason shook his head helplessly. I almost don't recognize you anymore. So, what do you think of me now? I asked with a faint smile. You're much better now, he said after a moment of thought. At least you won't cry and humble yourself for a woman anymore. In the afternoon, I was in the middle of a meeting when the secretary knocked and entered. President Koo, a lawyer is here to see you for official business. Let her in, I ordered. A young female lawyer walked into the conference room. She was beautiful, elegant, and had a strong professional presence. "Hello, President Koo. My name is Tiffany Sue, and I'm Miranda's appointed attorney. Please have a seat," I gestured politely. She sat down and took a document out of her briefcase. "This is my client's formal statement regarding the divorce," she said. I took the document and glanced through it quickly. "She refuses to agree to the divorce," I confirmed. "Correct. She sincerely hopes to salvage your marriage," Tiffany replied professionally. "That's completely impossible," I said firmly. Tiffany looked at me calmly. "President Koo, are you really not willing to give her another chance? Another chance after she betrayed me?" I asked coldly. "Everyone makes mistakes in life," she tried to mediate. "Mistakes have corresponding consequences," I interrupted her. "Lawyer Sue, are you here to mediate the dispute or to lecture me on morality?" She paused for a moment and apologized politely. "I'm sorry, that was inappropriate of me. If Miranda insists on refusing the divorce, we will proceed with formal legal procedures," I stated clearly. "I have sufficient evidence to prove her marital wrongdoing," I added. "What kind of evidence?" she asked curiously. I took out my phone and showed her the chat records between Miranda and Philip. After reading a few messages, Tiffany's expression gradually turned serious. "Are these all real?" she asked in shock. "Absolutely 100% real," I replied firmly. She closed my phone and sat in silent thought for a while. "President Koo, I think I need to discuss this matter again with my client." "As you wish," I replied casually. She stood up to leave but suddenly turned back at the door. "President Koo, personally speaking, I think your decision is absolutely correct." I was a little surprised by her words. "Why do you think so?" "Betrayal is betrayal, and there are never any valid excuses for it," she said seriously. After saying this, she turned and left my office. This female lawyer was really rational and principled, quite interesting. That night, I was watching TV in my hotel room when a news report popped up. A marketing manager of a local group attempted suicide due to emotional disputes and is currently hospitalized. Although the news did not mention names, I knew it was referring to Miranda. It seemed that the whole incident had already spread publicly. I turned off the TV quietly and prepared to rest. Tomorrow would be a brand new day for me. I was finally going to walk out of this painful marriage. #Chapter 7. On the third morning, I received a call from Tiffany. "President Koo, Miranda has finally agreed to the divorce settlement." "Good," I replied calmly. "But she has one final small condition," she added. "What condition?" I asked. "She hopes you can come to the hospital to see her one last time." I thought for a short moment and agreed. "Okay, when? Can you come this afternoon?" "I can," I replied simply. In the afternoon, I arrived at the city hospital. Miranda was lying weakly on the hospital bed, with her wrists tightly bandaged. Her face was as pale as a sheet of paper, without a trace of blood. The moment she saw me walk in, a faint glimmer of surprise flashed in her eyes. "Henry, you actually came." I sat down beside her bed. "What do you want to say to me?" She choked up with tears. "Henry, I really know I was wrong." "I know," I replied flatly. "Then can you forgive me?" she asked eagerly. "No," I refused without hesitation. The faint light in her eyes instantly dimmed completely. "Why?" she asked hoarsely. "Because forgiving you no longer has any meaning for me." "What do you mean by that?" She looked confused. "Miranda, you cheated not because I was a bad husband," I said calmly. "You cheated simply because that is your inherent character. Even if I forgave you this time, you would definitely do it again in the future." "I won't. I swear I will never do it again," she denied frantically. "Empty promises and swears are completely worthless to me," I replied coldly. She burst into helpless tears. "Henry, why are you being so heartless to me?" "I'm not heartless. I'm just finally awake and rational. Are our 3 years of marital relationship just gone like this without a trace?" 3 years? I let out a cold sneer. "Miranda, was there ever a single day in these 3 years that you truly cared about me?" She froze on the spot, unable to answer my question. "From the very beginning, you stayed with me only because I had money and status. You married me purely to secure your position and development in the company." "No, that's not true," she murmured weakly. "Then what about Philip?" I asked sharply. "Why did you get close to him?" She remained completely silent. You liked him because he is young, handsome, and can satisfy your vain vanity, I answered for her. Miranda, you have never truly loved me. You only loved the benefits and status I could give you. Henry. She cried brokenly. Now that I'm leaving you, you panic and even threaten suicide to keep me, I continued. But sorry, your childish threats no longer work on me at all. Miranda cried uncontrollably, begging repeatedly. Henry, please don't leave me. Why shouldn't I leave you? I asked calmly. Because I can't live without you. She sobbed. Then why didn't you think about this when you chose to betray me? She could only cry silently, with no words to refute. I stood up slowly from the chair. Miranda, my lawyer has already brought the divorce agreement. Please sign it as soon as possible to end this completely. I won't sign it. She refused stubbornly. If you refuse to sign voluntarily, we will settle this in court, I said firmly. I turned to leave, but she suddenly called out my name. Henry. Is there anything else you want to say? I asked indifferently. If I sign the papers, will you come to see me occasionally in the future? I shook my head firmly. No. Then, will you miss me even a little bit? No, I replied without any hesitation. She fell into complete despair and collapsed weakly back onto the bed. I turned around and walked out of the ward. Tiffany was waiting for me quietly at the door. President Koo, you are far too resolute. She is quite pitiful after all. Pitiful? I stopped walking and turned to look at her. Lawyer Sue, tell me, who is the pitiful one between us? You. She hesitated slightly. I was the one betrayed, deceived, and hurt, I said calmly. Why should I sympathize with the person who personally hurt me? Tiffany was instantly speechless by my words. Lawyer Sue, if you were in my position, what would you do? I would also choose to divorce decisively, she replied honestly. Exactly, I nodded. That evening, Tiffany called me to report the result. President Koo, Miranda has finally signed the divorce agreement. Good, I replied calmly. When should we go through the official divorce formalities? She asked. The sooner the better, I said. How about tomorrow morning? That's fine with me. After hanging up the call, I let out a long breath of relief. It was finally over. This painful and false marriage was finally coming to an end. Chapter 8. The next morning, Miranda and I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to complete the divorce procedures. She sat in a wheelchair, with a pale face and hollow, lifeless eyes. She did not say a single word throughout the entire process. When the staff handed us the official divorce certificates, she suddenly burst into tears. Henry, is it really all over? She choked up painfully. It's over, I put my divorce certificate away properly. Miranda, you are free now. I don't want this kind of freedom, she whispered brokenly. But I do, I replied firmly. With that, I turned and walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau without looking back. The sun was shining brightly outside, and I took a deep breath of fresh air. The feeling of regaining freedom was incredibly wonderful. Tiffany drove her car to send me back to the company. President Koo, how do you feel now? She asked gently. Very good, I replied sincerely. Aren't you sad at all after ending a 3-year marriage? Why should I be sad? I asked faintly. After all, you two had 3 years of relationship, she said. Lawyer Sue, I looked at her calmly. Do you think one-sided dedication and love can be counted as true love? She thought for a moment and shook her head. No, it cannot. Exactly, I nodded in agreement. When we arrived downstairs at the company building before I got out of the car, I thanked her. Lawyer Sue, thank you very much for your professional help during this case. You're welcome, she smiled gently. President Koo, I actually admire you a lot. Why do you admire me? I asked in surprise. Not everyone can let go of a failed relationship so decisively and thoroughly, she replied. That's only because this relationship was never worth cherishing, I said. She nodded in understanding. President Koo, if you are willing, could we be ordinary friends? She asked shyly. I was a little surprised but agreed readily. Of course. Can I save your contact number? Sure, I replied casually. We exchanged phone numbers smoothly. President Koo, she said softly, I think you are a really good person. Thank you for your compliment, I smiled slightly. A man like you will definitely need a better and sincere partner, she blessed me. Thank you for your good wishes, I replied sincerely. After sending Tiffany off, I returned to my office. The secretary immediately informed me, President Koo, the chairman wants to see you. I went straight to the chairman's office. Henry, sit down, the chairman gestured warmly. I heard you just completed your divorce procedures. Yes, I nodded honestly. You handled Miranda's incident very properly, he praised me. Thank you, Chairman. The company is not a charity. It will never tolerate people who corrupt the workplace atmosphere. I fully understand, I replied respectfully. Now that you are single again, you can focus all your energy on work, the chairman smiled. I plan to transfer you to the group headquarters as the formal vice president, he said. Headquarters vice president? I was slightly stunned by this unexpected surprise. Yes, he nodded affirmatively. Thank you very much for your trust, Chairman, I thanked him sincerely. You have earned this promotion with your ability, the chairman patted my shoulder. Young man, your future development is limitless. After leaving the chairman's office, my mood was exceptionally good. The divorce did not affect my career at all. On the contrary, it opened up a better development opportunity for me. That evening, Mason specially invited me to dinner to celebrate my new life. Henry, congratulations on getting out of the wrong marriage and starting over, he raised his glass. Thank you, I clinked glasses with him gently. How do you feel now? He asked with a smile. I've never felt so relaxed and comfortable before, I replied truthfully. This is the way life should be. Mason took a sip of wine. Henry, I've always wanted to tell you that Miranda never deserved your kindness. Why do you say that? I asked. She is far too selfish. She only took benefits from you but never gave her heart to you. It's all in the past now, no need to mention it again, I said casually. You're right, it's all over, Mason suddenly smiled mysteriously. Henry, I want to introduce a nice girl to you. Who is it? I asked casually. My classmate's younger sister, she works in a bank and has a very good personality. No need, I refused gently. I don't want to date anyone for now. Why not? He asked in confusion. I want to enjoy the freedom of being single for a while, I replied. That's fine, you're still young and there's no rush, he said. As we were talking, my mobile phone rang suddenly. It was a call from Tiffany. President Koo, sorry to bother you in your spare time. It's fine, what's the matter? I asked gently. I have a few business contract legal questions I want to consult you about. I'm not a professional legal expert, I said with a smile. It's about business operation contracts, and you must know more than I do, she said. All right, let's find time to discuss it in detail, I agreed. When is it convenient for you? She asked. How about tomorrow night? Okay, I'll find a quiet place, she replied happily. Sounds good, I said. After hanging up the phone, Mason smiled teasingly. Henry, that didn't take long at all. A woman is already looking for you. It's not what you think, I explained helplessly. She's my divorce lawyer, and we have business to discuss. A lawyer? Mason's eyes lit up instantly. Is she the one who helped you handle the divorce case? Yes, I nodded. Is she pretty? He asked curiously. She's elegant and professional, I replied objectively. Henry, I think this is a great opportunity for you, he said seriously. What opportunity? An opportunity to start a new relationship, he smiled. You just got divorced and need a fresh start. Stop talking nonsense, we only have business to discuss, I shook my head. Business can slowly turn into feelings, he teased. I did not respond to his joke. But honestly, Tiffany did leave me a very good impression. She was professional, rational, and principled, completely different from the selfish and vain Miranda. Maybe this was truly a brand new beginning for me. Chapter 9. The next evening, I met Tiffany at a quiet and elegant cafe. She wore a simple white shirt and black skirt, looking intellectual and graceful. President Koo, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to meet me. It's my pleasure, I sat down opposite her. What legal questions do you want to ask? Well, she looked a little embarrassed. Actually, I don't have any legal questions. Then what did you ask me out for? I asked with a faint smile. I want to treat you to dinner to thank you for trusting me with your divorce case, she said sincerely. You don't have to be so polite, I replied gently. You don't mind, do you? She asked cautiously. Of course not, I shook my head. We chatted about many topics freely all night. We talked about work, daily life, personal interests, and life ideals. Tiffany was a very interesting person, humorous and insightful. President Koo, she suddenly asked me, do you still miss Miranda a little bit? No, I answered without any hesitation. Not even a tiny bit? She asked curiously. Not at all, I replied firmly. Why? She looked confused. Because she is completely not worth my nostalgia, I said frankly. Tiffany nodded in understanding. President Koo, you are a very rational person, she commented. Rationality is often forced out by painful experiences, I smiled bitterly. What do you mean? She asked softly. If I keep being emotional and soft-hearted, I will only get hurt over and over again. She nodded thoughtfully. Lawyer Sue, I changed the topic. Why did you choose to be a lawyer? Because I love the sense of fairness and justice in this profession, she replied sincerely. Do you think my divorce result with Miranda is fair? I asked. Very fair, she said firmly. The one who makes the mistake must bear all the consequences. What would you do if your boyfriend betrayed you one day? I asked curiously. I would leave him without hesitation, she replied instantly. Betrayal has no excuses. I looked at her with sincere admiration. Our views on feelings are very consistent. Yes, she smiled brightly. President Koo, actually I think we are quite a good match. A good match for what? I asked jokingly. To be good friends, she blushed slightly. I smiled gently. Of course, I also think we can be good friends. By the time we finished chatting and left the cafe, it was already very late. I drove her back to her apartment building. When we got downstairs, she suddenly spoke up. President Koo, if you don't mind, I want to ask you a personal question. Go ahead, I replied casually. Do you have feelings for me? She asked bravely and directly. I was slightly surprised by her straightforwardness but answered honestly. Yes, I do. A bright glimmer of joy flashed in her eyes instantly. Then, can we try dating? She asked nervously. Are you sure? I looked at her seriously. I just got divorced, and I might still need some time to fully recover. I'm not in a hurry at all, she smiled gently. I can wait for you as long as you need. Why are you willing to wait? I asked softly. Because I think you are a worthy person, she replied sincerely. At that moment, I felt a long-lost warm touch in my heart. Tiffany, I gently held her hand. Thank you. Thank me for what? She looked up at me in confusion. Thank you for letting me believe that there are still sincere and good people in this world. She showed a sweet and pure smile. President Koo, let's start as ordinary friends first. Okay, I nodded gently. That night, I slept extremely well and peacefully. In my dreams, there were no more cries and quarrels from Miranda. There was no pain and disappointment from betrayal, only Tiffany's warm and bright smile. The next morning, I woke up and saw a message from Tiffany. Good morning, President Koo. Wish you a smooth and successful day at work. It was such a simple message, but it made my whole day feel bright. I replied to her, Good morning, Lawyer Sue. From that day on, we chatted every day and had meals together occasionally. Tiffany was very good at grasping interpersonal boundaries. She never crossed the line to be overly intimate, nor did she pressure me to make any relationship promises. She was like a gentle spring breeze, slowly blowing into my desolate life. She healed my broken heart little by little with her sincerity and tenderness. 3 months later, we officially became a loving couple. Half a year later, I formally proposed to Tiffany. Tiffany cried happily and agreed to marry me. At that moment, I knew I had finally found the person who truly belonged to me. Miranda was just a wrong episode in my life journey. Tiffany was my real future and lifelong happiness. Our wedding was simple and warm, only attended by close relatives and friends. At the wedding, Mason said to me with a smile, Henry, you have finally found someone who truly loves and cherishes you. Yes, I had finally found her. Tiffany would never betray me, never hurt me, never treat me as a spare tire. She loved me for who I truly am, not for my money, status, or power. This is the true appearance of sincere love. Chapter 10. 1 year after we got married, we had our own child. When Tiffany was pregnant, I cooked for her every day, went for walks with her, and listened to her talk about work. The feeling of being needed and cherished was something I had never experienced with Miranda. Hubby, Tiffany suddenly asked me one day, do you ever think about Miranda? No, I answered honestly, she's already in the past for me. Not even a little bit? Not at all. I gently touched her belly. All my attention now is on you and the baby. Tiffany smiled contentedly. After the baby was born, I truly experienced what the warmth of home meant. Every day after work, when I came home and saw Tiffany's gentle smile and the baby's cute face, I felt like the happiest person in the world. One day, Mason came over to visit. "Henry, you really look happy now." "Yes, I am very happy." "Do you remember how you cried your eyes out over Miranda 2 years ago?" "I do," I chuckled. "I was really foolish back then." "It wasn't foolish, it was just being too kind," Mason said. "You treated Miranda like a treasure, but she treated you like a fool." Let the past stay in the past. I looked at Tiffany, who was busy in the kitchen. "I just want to cherish the happiness I have now." "Yes, cherishing is the most important thing." That night, Tiffany asked me, "Hubby, what if one day Miranda wants to come back to you? What would you do?" "I wouldn't meet her," I answered without hesitation. "Someone like her no longer deserves to be in my life." "Won't you feel soft-hearted?" "No," I hugged her. "Tiffany, now I have you and the baby. Why would I bother with the past?" "I just wanted to make sure," she pouted in my arms. "After all, you two had 3 years of feelings." "That wasn't love, that was unrequited," I corrected her. "True love should be like ours." "Like ours?" she asked. "Mutual respect, mutual cherishing, mutual trust." I think we're really happy too." 5 years later, I became the CEO of the group, and Tiffany became a well-known lawyer. Our child was healthy and happy, and our relationship grew deeper with time. Sometimes, I think that if I hadn't gone through that painful marriage with Miranda, I might not appreciate the happiness I have now as much. So, in a way, I have to thank Miranda. I thank her for her betrayal, because it made me realize what true love is and who is worth cherishing. As for how Miranda is doing now, I don't know, and I don't care. What I know is that my life truly began the day I met Tiffany. And the Henry who once felt desperate because of Miranda is now long gone. The person I am now is someone completely new. Someone who knows how to love and be loved. Someone who is worthy of being cherished. Someone who is truly happy.